You're on. If you want me to take that. All good. Okay. Elected members, staff, members of the gallery, welcome to the council meeting for the 26th of April. You're here. I'd like to acknowledge that we're on the traditional land of the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains region and that we pay our respects to elders past and present. We recognise and respect their cultural heritage, beliefs and relationships with the land, and we acknowledge they are of continuing importance to the Kaurna people living today. Also, I read you the council pledge. We seek wisdom and understanding as we face the duties of our united task, praying for the peace and prosperity of our city. Please be seated. It's a reminder that we are on camera here and being telecast across the globe via Facebook. Well, for those that tune in, and recorded, and then the whole meeting is up available afterwards as well. So, a helpful reminder. On leave, we have nil. Apologies, we have Councillor De Backer. I think everyone else is here. Is that right? Looks like it. Yeah. Declaration by members of a conflict of interest. Are there any? I know there are at least one, and that's for item 10.7 regarding attendance at the Australian Local Government Association National General Assembly. So I am being nominated for that, and so is Deputy Mayor, and so is Councillor Pearce. Yes. So I'll certainly ask for a conflict to be declared in my name, and the others as well, I presume, if you want. Yeah, with regarding to receiving a benefit by if you approve us going in the form of attendance and accommodation at that event. And I'll leave the room and not participate in the discussion. So same thing to all three of us. Okay. Are there any other conflicts of interest to register? I didn't see any. Okay, great. Confirmation of minutes. Normally a straightforward affair, but there were some changes requested. They are now in the revised minutes, which I have a copy of here in case people want to see them. I've got here too. But they are as per the requests that were made, and they are in the recommendation that's there and on the screen. So please check the one that you raised to make sure that is as you see it, and what's up on the recommendation is precisely what will be changed in the minutes. So if you're comfortable with that. Councillor Groot.
Can I just make a comment?
Is it a question about the change or?
Yeah, question.
Oh, so I can go to debate if it's a comment.
Look, just go to debate.
Okay, go to debate. So I have a mover. Someone's happy to move the minutes as amended on the screen are approved as the record of the meeting. Sorry, Councillor Ripp, do you wish to speak to it?
Yeah, I will. For clarification of the room, I asked for item 10.4 to be added. Reason I asked for it to be added is more so to protect both the council and the councillor with the conflict, only because it's been standard practice that I've seen at other councils, and I think we've done it here as well, that if someone declares a conflict, you're supposed to declare what type of conflict that was, which Councillor Groot did on the night, but you're actually supposed to record how that councillor with the conflict actually voted with a line like that. It's not, from what I've seen, it's not okay just to have it declared and only declare how they voted in the division. It's supposed to be every vote, and it's supposed to be declared. So I just thought, I saw that and thought I would add that in, so that if there is a regular vote, that is one vote, and for division, a division is a separate and new vote of the council, so it's actually technically two votes. That's why I stated that both should be listed, just for clarification. Not, yeah.
Yep. So go and see how you concur with that, which is.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, yes.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second? Councillor Nguyen, do you wish to speak to it? Okay, Councillor Groot.
Look, just a comment really, and I have raised this previously with the CEO. I'm not uncomfortable with the amendment, with the change to the minutes. It's not something that we have done here before that I can recall in the last 11 years and so many months. That's not to say it hasn't happened. I just can't recall it ever happening. In this instance, I called it a division anyway, so everyone's vote was declared, so it's not an issue.
Yeah.
In other motions where a division might not have been called, I find it unusual that we're highlighting the vote of one or two or however many councillors declare a conflict on that issue. So I'm not uncomfortable given the division. But the other comment I made to the CEO was I just want consistency going forward. So if this is what we're going to do, and we're going to do this going forward, and got a new governance officer who might be the right person to provide advice on this in future meetings as well, I'm happy to support it. But I'm just after consistency, and this isn't technically consistent to what we've done in the past that I can recall. So it's just a comment. I'm not seeking anything to be changed. I'm happy with it, but just making that note, particularly around going forward.
Yes, I might ask a related question from the chair. I understand we were going to have a review of our meeting by Rob Dabrowski, who was going to bring that to us at some stage, so this might neatly fit within that. Is that still coming to us?
Yes. So through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe it's probably something we should look into early in the new chamber. Our new team leader governance and risk gets her her feet under the table, so to speak.
As in not tonight.
Not tonight. No. Give us a few months, and I do think it's something that the new council could tackle relatively early on.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Barnett.
I recall that we've actually been doing this for quite some time. It's part of the Local Government Act that if you do have a conflict, you've actually got to state what the conflict is and what you are going to be doing in regard to that. You're going to stay in the room and vote, out of the room and not vote, and whatever. So that's my understanding.
Thank you. Any further debate?
Sorry, just a brief question, just to clarify a comment made by the previous councillor, which is my point being not declaring the conflict, but declaring the way the person who declared the conflict. Is that a correct assumption? I
think you both made valid points that are related but not the same. That's the answer to your question. So just to clarify from the chair, Councillor Group was quite happy to have the type of vote outcome recorded. Councillor Barnett, you raised quite rightly, we've been recording whether someone has a conflict to an item, but we may not necessarily be recording how they voted in a decision on an item. Councillor Ripps saying it's good practice to do so. I've said the CEO should bring that to us to make that a consistent procedural, allow us to have a discussion around consistency. So I hope that tidies it up. Thank you for the question. Any further debate on this item? Councillor Ripps, any need to sum up?
Just very quickly, what I've seen here, most of the time, how we vote in a normal motion is pretty consistent to how people vote in division. Another council I was involved in, it would not be uncommon to see one or two people changing their vote from how they voted the first time to how they voted in a division. That's why the need to separate the two is important. And I agree with Councillor Group, consistency is important.
Okay, thank you. That concludes debate. All those in favour? Against is carried unanimously. Thank you. Next item is item 6, public question time. Maximum period per question of 3 minutes, total of 15 minutes altogether. Are there any questions from members of the gallery tonight? No, if it's the case, we'll move on to item 7, which is petitions. There are nil. Deputations, there is one. I now invite Mr. Andrew Taylor forward to talk about changes to the draft budget regarding the economic development team. You'd like to stand or take a seat? And for the purposes of the minutes, if you could state your name and address.
So Andrew Taylor, 30 Daphne Street in Prospect.
Okay, and you've got 5 minutes if you need it.
Fabulous, thank you. Tonight I'm talking on behalf of the Village Heart Marketing Fund, which is a group of local Prospect Road traders that pay a levy to support and build their businesses in the Village Heart. We've been in existence for about 5 years now in its current form. Without assistance and guidance from the economic development team, this well-known brand that has become Prospect Road and the Village Heart would not currently exist. The traders within the fund have donated significant time and effort in growing the brand and relied on the assistance from the economic development team. This has allowed the road to flourish and attract some new traders such as Sideways Liquor and Staker Sartorial, who made the decision to come to Prospect based on the brand of Prospect Road. The communication lines that this group have fostered into the council for the past 5 years have now essentially been erased. We were caught off guard when we were advised that the council was proposing that the economic development team were to be disbanded due to budget cuts, and struggled to understand how this decision had been reached without any consultation of the traders that form the Village Heart. Accordingly, there has been no time to create a transition plan to hand over the administration of the fund to the Village Heart traders. The Village Heart Marketing Fund has achieved Main Street awards on a budget of around 10% of other main streets due to the hard work of the council representatives and the traders that make up the group. The Village Heart Committee have provided much feedback in the past on investment attraction work plans and previous draft budgets and feel disappointed that we were not consulted on the proposal. It is a significant impost on this committee to take on the entire running and organising of this fund whilst we're still going through our own COVID recovery. A report was presented to Council on the 22nd of February on the outcomes of the community consultation. Council resolved to endorse the amended Investment Attraction and Economic Growth Plan 2021 to 24 and the 22-23 High Level Growth and Investment Attraction Work Plan. These plans are exactly the strategy that the Village Heart Marketing Fund have been working towards. We're concerned now that these plans that were endorsed only 2 months ago will now have no resources to implement them and will no longer be a focus of this council. The Village Heart Marketing Fund has assisted the council in winning 5 different Main Street awards over the past couple of years, improving the brand and draw of businesses, developers and residents into the area. A lot of the marketing material for various developments shows businesses within the Village Heart being used to secure that investment. Should the Village Heart fail or no longer exist, what would be the attraction for this type of development moving forward? Surely the council have a responsibility to the current traders and residents to ensure the growth on Prospect Road continues through the redevelopment of various sites. The commitments made to these developers included the draw of the Village Heart. These commitments will need someone to manage them by council during the actual construction process. The current and near-term future state of Prospect Road is one of upheaval and change, with multiple building sites, Sunny's, Foodland, the Harrington, etc., causing disruptions to the flow of the main street of Prospect. For a decision to eliminate the only department doing any work on the brand of Prospect Road seems a little short-sighted and disappointing. We as traders are also concerned that the developments in O'Connell Street will attract new traders, and traders that had planned on coming to our main street will instead prefer there, as there is a clear plan and considerable budget for development. We implore the council to reconsider this decision and investigate other options to balance the budget, and we as the traders will be watching the vote on this and other budgetary issues with interest. As a final note, the Village Heart Marketing Fund would like to express thanks to Emma Grivell for all of her assistance, hard work and dedication to our brand.
Okay, thank you. Had a minute up your sleeve, which is great. Now, I've asked the Deputy to stay there in case there are any questions from elected members. Are there any? Deputy Mayor.
I'll try to make this a question, right? He's watching me.
So, Deputy, it's not a time for us to debate you, but I'll allow people to ask you questions. It's not fair that you come here and enter into a discussion, but questions are a good thing.
Good. Okay, so I'll ask a question. So I understand your perspective, and you're aware that what we're looking to endorse tonight is that the annual business plan goes out for consultation, and that should be ample opportunities for people to formally express their concern with things that are in there or aren't in there.
Yes.
Yeah. I assume that would be the case. Just wanted to.
Can I say more to that?
Yes.
Whilst I understand that, the people in the roles have been, it has been alluded that they will not have a role coming for end of financial year. And to that end, Emma's actually left because of that, and good for her. But yeah, so I think whilst yes, I understand there is a process that needs to be gone through.
Yeah.
I think there was a high chance of it going through, which is why we're here. So yeah.
Any other questions? Councillor Grigg.
Thanks for your presentation, first of all. Is there any component of the economic development work or support that you've had over the last few years that you would prioritise over other bits? Like, is there something that's actually really, really critical that you'd see as a priority beyond maybe some of the other things that we've been doing?
Yeah, look, I think the administration of it is probably the most critical. The lines of communication into the council, how we get stuff paid for, that process that we don't know outside of the fund, we don't know, and has always been handled by either Daniel or Emma. So, we've lost that line of communication, I guess, is probably the biggest thing. So the administration would be great. The social media and stuff, we can definitely, outsource that, and we've already got quotes for that. But it just would have been nice to have a little bit more time. That's all, I guess. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Ripp.
Obviously, I'll try my minor question as well. Obviously, with the draft budget, you may or may not be aware, but we've had obviously asset management issues where we've had to look at revaluing assets, and it's meant we've had to find significant, and I'm not talking small, significant savings. So I guess a bit of a curveball for you. If you need to take it on notice, please do. But if you're suggesting that we don't reduce anything, say, in economic development, where else in the council do you think that we could find savings? Because ultimately savings are going to have to come from somewhere. So have you seen other activities out in the community that you think I guess we could find alternative savings, because it's going to have to come from?
That's a question to answer. If something springs to mind, go for it.
Yeah.
It's our job.
Otherwise, rates.
Yeah.
But no, I thought, get your feedback.
That's a fair question. Potentially trees. I think there's quite a large line item in there for trees and the renewal of trees and stuff, which I get. But and we all like to live on leafy streets. I get that, but I think there was a quite considerable amount of money for trees, which I found odd. But I don't need an explanation. It's
a great tunnel program.
But so other than that, can't think of anything off the top of my head right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Feel free during consultation to
deal with that, because that would be something we'll seriously consider as well.
Any other questions, Councillor Group?
Sorry, just another one prompted partly by Councillor Ripp. I'm just thinking in terms of COVID and the impact of COVID. You mentioned that in your presentation. When do you think your business, other businesses along the main street, will be fully, I don't want to say fully recovered, because I'm not sure anyone will ever be fully recovered from COVID.
Yeah.
I mean, what's that timeline look like to you in terms of normal business activity?
I think that time is close, definitely. The removal of the close contact rules and stuff. Thank you. The removal of the close contact rules and stuff, I think that will make a big difference. Obviously, our business suffers when someone's a close contact and bang, I lose 3 staff and I only have 3 rostered on. It's a problem. Or even for a lot of other businesses, it's, husband and wife and 1 other staff, and, the husband and wife go down, business is closed. So it's tough with those rules. But I think the time is coming. But along with that, we will need to continue to promote and drive through the Village Heart Marketing Fund, our businesses as well. So I think it's close, and we are getting there.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor.
What will happen to the Village Heart Marketing Fund as an organisation, given that council resources aren't there to support it? First question. Second one, try to make this one a question. So I've been raising the North Adelaide spectre that at some point in time, North Adelaide O'Connell Street will get its act together, and we want to make sure we're well positioned. Then can the if we are cutting our budgets for a period of time, can the Village Heart Marketing Fund survive running its own show until council sees that budget, therefore resources could be reapplied, or do you think that this is a killer for the organisation?
Okay, so for the first point, what will happen? Well, we're scrambling to try and work out exactly what we will look like after this. We've, as I said, we've asked for quotes for some marketing people, social marketing people. There's plenty out there that we can grab. So that the problem is the actual physical organisation. I don't know what that will look like, because previously we've been quite a loose committee. I don't know what the correct term is, working group. But to be more formalised, we would then have to become an organisation, and that comes with a whole heap of taxation. There's a whole lot of other stuff that is involved in that, that we're trying to find out about at this stage. So that's, I guess, the first part. What are we going to look like? I'm not really sure yet. Will we continue? Can we go into a holding pattern? Absolutely. Of course we can. It seems like an odd time to go into a holding pattern when there's a lot of disruption on the street already. So I think I don't think it's the right time to go into a holding pattern. However, potentially being forced into a holding pattern, we will keep the brand alive because we as traders have done a lot of work to build that brand, and we will not let it die. But there's a process to get there, and also just administrative wise, taking on the brand. The Facebook page, the Instagram page is all run under council. So for us to now take that away, there's got to be a process and a handover, and that takes time. That's not an overnight thing that has to be approved, I'm sure. So yeah, I hope that's answered.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you.
Councillor Barnett.
Yes, thank you very much for your presentation, Andrew. And I know that I did advise when I was asked as ward councillor, one of the ward councillors, that that there are opportunities open to you as a group to come, and one of these is tonight. And also the definitely through the process now.
Question in here, Councillor Barnett, isn't there?
Yes, so that there. So are you now aware of the opportunities that there are for you as a group and traders to try and influence council's draft budget?
Yes. So yes, we are, and we are working towards those and coming up with some statements for that to go with that. Yes. Thank you. We will get more information as time moves forward, but we are running out of time because that consultation starts as of tonight.
Well, hopefully tonight. Yes.
Yeah. So we do know that we are running out of time to make those statements.
Let's ask from the chair. So, Councillor, the draft budget, as it's come to us tonight, also includes collecting the Main Street Marketing Fund.
Yes.
Are you happy that that's still collected in terms of the fee per business?
Look, I think we are as the small group that was there that had this discussion is definitely happy that it continues. There was some conversations around increasing it so that we could potentially fund an Emma, if you like, to do the admin internally. But that process will take time because we will have to go and consult with all the others, 130 businesses involved that will all need to be consulted before any decisions can be made. And Emma was the one that would always look after that. The other thing was that with that money, we're happy for it to be collected as long as we have access to it. And I think that's another issue that needs to be worked out, ironed out, is the access.
Yep. No, good observations. Okay, if there's no more questions, thank you, Andrew, for your deputation. It was very, very clear, and your answers to the questions equally clear. So you're welcome to stay, return to your seat if you could,
yes.
But you're welcome to stay for the rest of the council meeting. We do have another presentation tonight, so I'm intending to ask the elected members to bring forward another item prior to the draft budget being discussed at item 10.9. Sure. You're welcome to stay until then if you wish.
Thank you.
Also, if you need to nick off home, that's fine by us. We won't take any offence. We've got a long night ahead. Thank you very much. Next item, questions without notice. Are there any?
Mainly for the people who've come tonight in the gallery, can the administration just explain the budget consultation period, when it will open, if past tonight, when it will open, an indication of how long they'll have to give feedback, please?
See ya. Ginny, if you could, please. Director.
Through the chair, the consultation process is on the agenda, page 14. So they spelled out as to what are the forms of consultation, including focus group, including a website, including the community hub. They're all in the body of the report.
Thank you. And we can provide a copy of that to our deputy. Any further questions without notice? Being none, move on to reports for decision. As I just foreshadowed, item 12.4 is the item I'm seeking leave to pull forward. It's on page recommendations 22 is regarding the council assessment panel. The activity report, the staff have arranged for the presiding member of the council assessment panel to be here tonight. That's on Donaldson is here. So I just seek leave firstly for elected members in favour of putting that item forward. All those We're happy with that. Against, so we'll do that. Thank you for granting leave. And we now ask the staff, who I think is Mr. McCluskey, if you'd like to come forward with Mr. Donaldson to the table. And while you're doing that, I just seek leave to suspend meeting procedures until 7:45, should we need it, to hear a presentation from the presiding member and to take questions of the presiding member and staff, should we need it. All those in favour of suspending meeting procedures until then, thank you. No one against, that's unanimous. So 7:45 is our target. Over to you, Mr. McCluskey.
Sure. Thank you, Matt. I can introduce our presiding member of our assessment panel, Don Donaldson, who's been with our panel now for a number of years. Obviously, there's a report in front of you, but Don's going to make a statement in addition to the activity commentaries and the report around the activities of the panel.
Thank you. Well, hello, members. David, thank you for this opportunity to address the council. I think it's a worthwhile exercise for council and the panel to at least interact on an occasional basis, on a face-to-face basis as well, rather than just an activity report. I think it is a fairly fundamental function of council in terms of development assessment, and there's a fair degree of responsibility put on our shoulders by council. So I think this sort of opportunity is worthwhile. I certainly endorse the comments and the information included in Scott's report in terms of the activity report, and it's not really my intention tonight to outline those matters. What I wanted to do is give you, I suppose, a number of observations as presiding member that have struck me in the exercise of my duties and the panel's meetings. And it also, I suppose, takes into account my role over previous years on other panels and how this panel might operate, does operate. From that point of view, I think the panel has operated well. Now, the presiding member is likely to say that, but I think the data in the activity report, but also aspects such as the attendance of members, the level of discussion we have, the different skills and knowledge that is brought to the panel by the different members, I think generally leads us to making decisions on a consensus basis. But where we don't necessarily get to that point, there's always respect about each other's different points of view, different perspectives, and a decision made that is a majority one, but is accepted by all, I think. So I think from those sorts of aspects, the panel operates well. I think I need to acknowledge that Councillor Robin Pearce, I think as the elected member, balances well the local knowledge and the local sentiment with the planning controls that he's restricted to. And I think that should be stated, I think. I do think that, well, sorry, I'll go back a step. The panel receives very good architectural and urban design advice through its advisors, council's advisors. I think we've lost something in terms of the panel not having an architect, urban designer type member on the panel. I think with David Cook's departure, I think the discussions that were made of that advice and the discussions that engendered in the panel is something that I've observed is missed, and might be another opportunity when the council is to renew membership to look at those opportunities. I really need to congratulate Scott and his staff in terms of the reports that come to us. I think they're very, very thorough and comprehensive and very well written. And I'm using this in a comparison sense to other panels that I've sat on and with other councils. And I think Scott's support at the meeting to me and to the panel generally is of very high expertise. So again, I take this opportunity of thanking him for that. I think the transition from the Development Act and to the PDI Act was very well handled. It was seamless. There wasn't any real hiccups. The information was there, and the decision making was certainly made more comfortable and easier for us because of that transition. I think the other thing that is going for the panel is the level of technology this council has in terms of the running of the meetings. It worked well through the COVID periods. It's worked well when members have been able to log on and participate in the meeting rather than being able to attend because they're in isolation or just not able to make it. And we've had representatives online and the like. One meeting, I think, when we had about 100 odd people in the gallery, maybe the microphone system didn't quite get there, but I shouted and it went well. So from the point of view of being assisted in our deliberations and discussions, the technology is good here. I also think that the level of delegations between the panel and staff seems about right and appropriate. Operationally, I think the level of matters considered by the panel is at a workable level. I mean, I'm speaking to the converted here, but reading an agenda of 300, 400 pages, fully absorbing those sort of matters, doing a site visit and all the rest does take time. And I think everyone treats their role very conscientiously. So from that point of view, the numbers of applications we're dealing with and the like, I think sits well in terms of that competing interest. I think it also enables, I think, the minimising of delays for applicants in terms of getting reports to a meeting and the like. So I think the balance between internal decision making and the panel sits about right. And as I've said, the quality of the reports are always outstanding. So all I'd also want to say is in closing that I would certainly like to thank Council for the privilege of appointing me presiding member. It is a task that I don't take lightly, and it is an important task for a panel that does an important role for the Council. So thank you.
Thank you. And now, thank you, presiding member. Mr. Donaldson, I'll now open up for questions if there are any of either staff or the presiding member of CAP. Christina.
Yes, thank you for that. I'm just thinking ahead, we've just been through a big amount of review and change in that with the Development Act, but the incoming and now the current state government has flagged that they're looking to do another review. So just very briefly, do you think there are some opportunities that we could improve things?
Oh, certainly. I think the basis of the code and the system is good. The portal certainly needs a lot of fine tuning in terms of ministry functions and the like, and reporting needs to be improved. But I think most of those sort of things have been recognised. It needs to be remembered, I think, that planning review started in 2013 by the Labor government. There was some interesting early work done that looked at what it was trying to achieve in outcomes. It would be interesting to go back to review how what we've got met those initial outcomes. I think some of that has been lost sight of. But as a general rule, I think the planning system now seems to be operating well. From this council's point of view, I think you've had a slight increase in public notifications as a result of that. But in others, like where I work at Unley, it's been significantly cut. We had 45% applications given public notification. We're down to 20%. You're still much lower than that. So from an efficiency point of view, I think there are gains.
Any other questions?
I've got a tricky question. I'll apologise in advance for it. But you mentioned earlier around the role of the elected member on the panel and providing that really good quality sort of input around local issues and understand the community probably better than what the CAP members who are there for the technical expertise could do. My question is not about the prospect CAP particularly, and certainly not about my councillor to my left, but how influential can elected members be on CAPs given we've got one and the panel is greater than two. And I reflect back on my time at CAP where there was a majority of elected members on the CAP and we were able to make decisions absolutely within the scope of the Act, but with more of an influence, I guess, on local requirements. So how the question is, how influential can elected members be on CAPs where they are effectively in the minority from a numbers?
Well, I think one opportunity that isn't taken up very much, and I can understand the conflict that might present itself, but certainly elected members could take the opportunity of representing their constituents more fully through the public notification process. It is rare that, in my experience, where an elected member has represented a representative to more who is, because of their lack of knowledge in planning systems or the processes of council, and they can present an argument more fully. That doesn't seem to happen, but it's certainly there for elected members. In terms of other matters, I mean, be mindful that the Liberal government was going to have no elected members on panels. And again, the one was as an appeasement to local government. I think the way I operate, I don't try and differentiate Robin from any other member. He's there, has one vote like everybody else and has input like everybody else. He does have the advantage of probably knowing the area better and the sentiments we have. So that's an advantage, I think.
I might quickly add to that, Mark, and wearing a slightly different hat. I sit at times on the City of Adelaide Enfield assessment panel. And during discussion on one item, there was a particularly sort of powerful point made by the elected member on that panel about the process the council went through in a development plan amendment to achieve a certain outcome with one of its policy areas, and the history and context added a richness to that discussion that I think potentially changed the outcome on that item. I mean, that's part of the local knowledge that Don is speaking to, where elected members can play a really powerful role.
Thank you. That's a good answer.
Any other questions?
Just out of curiosity, do many people, I guess, on the panel do site visits? Do people sort of go and visit the sites? Because I know, speaking to another councillor who isn't here tonight, she was wanting to know a bit about that as she's raised it at other meetings. So just sort of like to know if people do actually do the site visits.
To my knowledge, we all undertake site visits. I certainly do. As I said, the number of applications involved for a meeting makes it feasible to do that. It's a small council area anyway. The travelling times are short and all the rest, but we certainly, the meeting procedures talk about encouraging site visits, and to my knowledge, we are all undertaking.
That's awesome. That's really good to hear. Yeah.
I might ask one. John, in terms of the amount of discussion at a meeting, it waxes and wanes, and sometimes it's all in the report and everyone just agrees. But if you're in the audience listening to something that's really important to you, you might perceive that no one cares because no one speaks. How do you, as presiding member, try and get that balance right? That's not just integral to the decision making, but also is perceived to be the right amount of contemplation and about an item.
Yes. It's an interesting point because the complexity of an item generally gives you divergent opinions and different emphasis on different planning provisions. So there's a natural inclination for members of the panel to put different weight on different things, and that generates a discussion generally. And because of, we're not necessarily opposing it in different ways, we're just coming at it from a different direction. Other matters tend to be fairly straightforward. And then there's I suppose, that balance of talking for talking's sake, as well as talking to outline where we're coming from in terms of our professional opinion. I think it's rare that we merely say, I agree with the report and I've got nothing further to add. Generally speaking, a member with the most to say about a particular matter tends to lead off, and others then add to those discussion points. One or two might say, I've got nothing further to add, or I agree with so-and-so. But artificially talking about something for the sake of talking, I'm not sure. It's productive.
Just another question for me. In terms of policy, in terms of content of the code, how do you see CAP's role in contributing to improvements?
Well, the improvements are going to be difficult because I think there's far more state government control over those amendments and the like. Councils have certainly lost fine-grained policies from their areas where, the standard one fits all. Well, no, that's a bit harsh. But the standard sort of policy statement that you've got to then weigh up in light of locality and other factors, I think we have lost something in translation because of that. I think that also means that we have to be more strategic in how we interpret the code. And I think that's a fundamental prerequisite of all members of panel. You don't just look at the numbers and tick and crosses, but you need to look at what is the intent of this zone, what is it trying to achieve, how does this development fit in with that, how is the locality influencing the interpretation of that. And I think generally, this panel has the expertise to do that.
Because there is now a hierarchy, isn't there, in the way the code is structured. So are people applying themselves, do you think, to that? Just looking at the headline statement.
Well, I don't think that's that different from the development plan that had the hierarchy as well. You look at the zone, you look at general provisions and all those sort of things. You took your cue from the desired future character statement and those sort of matters. I think the principles are very similar. The execution is slightly different.
Any final questions? Well, thank you very much, Presiding Member and Acting Director. Thank you for that. We'll now return to formal proceedings. And we've got that item before us now. Having put it forward, the recommendation is there as page 242, that having considered item 12.2, the Council Assessment Panel Activity Report, we receive and note the report. So I'll be happy to move that way. Councillor Barnett, wish to speak to it? Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ripp, wish to speak to it?
Other than just to say thank you for coming to your presentation. Really appreciate it.
Indeed. Thank you very much. Thank you. Any further debate? No. Councillor Barnett, did you wish to sum up Councillor Ripp's excellent speech?
I will.
No, that concludes the debate. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously, yes. And thank you, Presiding Member and Acting Director. Thank you. That deals with item 12.4. Now to 10.1. Almost as in a lesson about how to deal with the business that you're interested in on the night. When it's done, choose to go home. But anyway, 10.1 is the draft annual business plan 2022-2023. The report is extensive, of course, because it's quite a complex matter. Recommendation is on page 6. A revised recommendation, an error was picked up by Councillor Barnett about the Sesame. I was going to ask you, CEO, to say the Sesame Centenary Local History Book printing. That was meant to be included. So to tidy that up, that's now in the recommendation from the staff highlighted in yellow. So we're asking someone to move what's on the screen, not in the papers. Councillor Barnett, you happy to move it?
Yes.
You wish to speak to it?
Not really. I think we've done so many weeks of talking about it. I'll just leave it at that. I may do in my
summing up. Okay, thank you. And Councillor Harris indicating happy to second.
I'm happy to second it, but I don't need to speak because the previous speaker explained everything I was going to.
Okay, we'll open up for further debate. If there is any, do I have any other speakers to the draft budget? Deputy Mayor.
Question, first of all, and maybe only a question. Page 7, the Port Valuable Community Sports Hub, and it says that 3 million of the 4 million is included in the 2022-2023 draft budget. So two parts to the question. Where's the other mill? Has that been spent, or is it in the process of being spent, or is it for post-budget? And then the second one is, are we seem to get into this cycle of approving budgets and then not being able to spend the money within the budget for various reasons? And so are we confident that, and then, the carryover causes all sorts of problems. Seems like a repeating problem. So are we confident that we're going to expend the $3 million in the financial year that we're should it get approved? And I have one more question, but I'll ask those first of all.
I just asked for a point of order, please.
Of course, that's how the point of order works, councillor. So, yes.
I just thought I'd just second that yellow bit and we would have voted on that. Wow, what did I second?
The whole draft budget going out for consultation. Thank you. Not a point of order.
Yourself, I thought you said we're only voting on this bit.
No, councillor, as we always do, if there's an amendment from staff, it goes up in yellow and then, sorry for any confusion, but
Yep.
you got it on the floor. Thank you very much.
Say anything. Thank you.
CEO, Deputy Mayor's question.
So through you, Mayor Lachlan, I'll hand over to the Director of Infrastructure in a moment. My understanding is, firstly, I'll do the second part first, if I may, around the $1 million extra. That was allocated, as I understand, to this year, and some of that has been spent in terms of design work, project management, and preparing essentially the project to go to market. The expectation, obviously, is bring a design back to council. Right now, we're aiming for May. That's an aggressive timeframe that I've set. That design discussion will inform whether we can get it to market within, or certainly before the end of the financial year. But the intent then would be to start works and construction. I would hazard a guess by late August, early September at the earliest. Now, whether that means we can spend $3 million in the next financial year is up for debate. A lot depends on what the market can accommodate in terms of speed of construction. And that right now is an unknown. It is absolutely possible. Obviously, if I can rewind then back to the $1 million, there will be a portion of that, relatively significant portion of that, which will need to be either carried forward or rebudgeted later in the project. There are two ways we can do that. The money right now accommodates $3 million spending next financial year. I am bullish that we can spend most of that, if not all of it. But again, it does depend upon the design, getting through council and construction starting. I would hope, certainly, at least by early Q2 in 22-23. Director of Infrastructure, anything to add to that?
No, you did that well, but it is all dependent on how we go in May with getting a design that everyone's actually satisfied with and happy with, and it's going to deliver on your driving principles. If we don't meet that time frame, then we might want to look at the budget deliverable aspects fairly quickly.
Great, thank you. Second question, Deputy Mayor.
Well, I think that I did ask two questions already, so I've got a third one.
That's all right. Question.
Is that a point of order?
It will be if you don't carry on.
We seem to, so I imagine that all local government entities are all going through a process of a similar nature around the same time, and then we'll all prepare their budgets and everyone will start trying to madly spend money. Is there any way that we could look at a project like this and not necessarily have to expend the money in that financial year, but not risk losing it, so that we can sort of break the cycle of getting all down in the mouth about carryovers when there's not necessarily always a practical way of spending the money, and it might not always be the most cost effective or the most efficient way to approach it. I don't know if we've got an answer to that question now, but just a thought to raise.
So through you, Mayor Lachlan, councillors may recall that throughout the budget process, I have from time to time raised my suggestion that council could consider at least a 2-year budget cycle. It's a big adjustment. It's one that we have made in the previous council worked out in New South Wales, where rather than just presenting an annual budget, obviously you present a next year's budget in detail and that is adopted, but that there are a range of capital and operational projects that are essentially approved for let's say, a late financial year commencement. In other words, a tacit endorsement by council of a range of essentially non-negotiable projects for the 2-year timeframe. And that is specifically done with a view to enabling the administration to run a more consistent approach to project delivery. In other words, you can start to look at, for example, commencing a new project through the procurement phases, potentially as late as late Q3 or even Q4 in a financial year, knowing that the money's going to be there. You don't have to wait for the budget to be approved because essentially council have already approved that component of the budget for the next financial year. So in other words, you're adopting a 2-year budget in essence, with the second year still set or open for modification, but that in essence there is an endorsement of the projects that the administration can go to market with late in that financial year. I have to warn members, it's quite a change in thinking and will require some work for us to get there. Our systems aren't up to it yet. And it's not something I can promise you, but I've got ideas. That's one of them. Certainly the other one is around just good project costing, because there are plenty of projects, and Broadview is a good example, which we've known are not projects we can deliver in a single financial year. And so the money is there across financial years to apply. So it can be done. But again, you know, there are always challenges that arise with large projects. But if we manage them better, and in particular, you know, the current market circumstances create challenges. But yes, it can be done, and we're definitely thinking about it. And I agree, it's something we need to do better.
Thank you. Anything further, Deputy Mayor?
I finished with my excellent questions. So just with regards to what we're going out to the public with, I think one of the key points for me was on page 6 in italics there, with the reference from the audit committee who we charged with helping us, you know, and guide us with these decisions. So setting its average rate increase to no less than the inflationary impact on council's expenditure to ensure future sustainability is not eroded. So we've made a lot of tough calls to get it to this point with regards to, you know, unpopular decisions, and it might be attempting to propose an increase of less than this amount, but that based on the audit committee's advice, this is potentially setting us up for failure in the future. And this way, it's kind of like getting a bit of a problem out of the way as quickly as possible, and then moving forward back into the areas that we like to operate in. So thanks to the team for pulling together the process. I think it's definitely one of the better ones that I've been involved with, and looking forward to seeing what the public come back with through the consultation process.
Thank you. Further speakers, if there are any? Councillor Good.
Sorry, Councillor. Thank you. Just a couple of things, brief things from me. First of all, just a big thanks to the team for pulling it together, because this is a huge job and there's lots of competing priorities. I just want to comment on the community consultation. I do comment on this every budget, and I will do so again today, which is just to say I'm really pleased to see what the community consultation is looking like. In the recommendation, there is a comment in there around the CEO retaining the right to cancel or defer any consultations if there's another COVID outbreak, which I think is very sensible. But we probably need to turn our minds at some point to thinking, if that's deferred indefinitely before the next council, or before the council considers the budget in June, what does that actually mean? So I'd be saying we'd need to find other ways of consulting which are COVID friendly, rather than actually not doing it at all. That's just, I guess, a comment more than anything else. But it's really good to see a couple of different ways to consult with community, particularly the schools. I think that's really good. I just want to point out, particularly for the deputy, that in the report, it specifically talks about consultation focusing on key areas, including business support activities. So that is part of the consultation process, and I'm making the assumption that will include economic development activities as well. And so I think that's important. There is, and I don't normally do this, but I will just because of the word, there is an unfortunate spelling error on page 16. It says Karuna Cultural Project instead of Ghana. So it's just an R and a U around the wrong way. Would be good just for prosperity's sake to have that fixed, so that looking at this in future years, we can see that's been done. But look, this is going for consultation. I think we are going to be challenged by the consultation process this year. I think we should be challenged by it. And I think it might mean us thinking through things a little bit differently going forward after we hear back from the community what they're thinking. So this is a great process. I like this part of it. It's the easiest decision we make, I think, as a council each year is just to go to consultation on this. The hard one comes back in June. So thank you again to staff for all their hard work.
Thank you. Councillor Pitts.
A lot of what I want to say was just been said. Thank again to the staff for the presentation. I think it's very comprehensive on the workshops that we've worked through. And thank Andrew for the deputation. And past budgets I've been involved in, changes have been made if the consultation comes back very firm and in opposition to what we've put forward. So the focus groups are there as an opportunity. Probably the most important one is the public drop-in session on the 24th of May. I know that gives you 1 day, well, some of the submissions finish the next day, so you probably have to be prepared for that. But I encourage and look forward to the consultation to sort of tell us we are possibly wrong, and that's what the constituents want, and that's what it's there for. So I encourage as much consultation feedback as possible.
Thank you. Any further debate? Councillor Rip.
Yeah, on page 16, great to see that well, I suppose it's over pages 15 and 16, talking about the community engagement plan, particularly on page 16, what the consultation will focus on. I really would like to see, I guess, before it does go out further, plan on how we're going to actually communicate that in a social media post. So, for example, if we want to get, obviously, if we want people to give their feedback, there's no point just saying, hey, here's a budget, give us your feedback on the budget, because people are going to be like, too overwhelmed with that. What does that actually mean? However, if we're looking at, I guess, the dilemmas in this budget process has been around our asset reevaluation, having to find savings. So the question you would think would be, are you happy with a 3.5% rate rise? Explaining to them, obviously, linking that to inflation, but also that if you aren't happy with that, tell us what you want the extra savings to be. Or if you want a project back in terms of spending, tell us you want the project back in, and then what else can we cut to make sure? Because anything we add back in, I believe in our draft budget, we're looking at a 3.5% rate rise to keep with inflation. So anything you add further back in is going to just skyrocket the rates. So I'd like to look at how we engage with the community, and even if it's an inflammatory sort of comment to get people on there and get that engagement, I would love that, because at the end of the day, we want to know from the community, are they happy with our proposed savings? If not, what do you want to put back in? And what else do you want cut out? So I think we need to really drive the engagement here, because this budget is going to be really, really, really critical for us moving forward. So I'd like to actually see the engagement plan, and because the words we use are really critical to get that engagement back in. And in the past, speaking frankly, in the past, I don't think some of it's been a bit too boring to really get people's attention out there.
Thank you. CEO's making notes, which is always a good thing. Thank you, Councillor Webb.
Yeah, I concur with everything that everyone's said about the budget, and I look forward to the consultation, in particular encouraging people that we have not targeted to participate in the consultation. I also we should think about the language we use when we're engaging with community members when they come in to the consultation. Sometimes we hear it all the time, but for somebody who comes in, first time hearing the language, it's probably another language to them. So I strongly recommend that we use, friendly words that are normal everyday words, so that people understand what we're talking about. Because it does scare people to have to ask, what does that mean, or do I understand this? Just one thing I want to, highlight is that we've made, this decision, but it's not fixed, it's not concrete. And through the consultation process, there's opportunities for, things to change. And Councillor Pearce has said that it's, in the past where there's been focus group, having changing or giving us some information that, no, I don't think we've got it right, then there is possibilities that we could sway a different thing, different to what we've said. So I hope that we reach out, and I hope that the community members come and participate in the consultation.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you. Give us a chance to speak or move or second. Just from the chair, I wanted to chime in. I think this is one of the best budget processes I've been through. So thank you, CEO and staff. It's also been, I think, the toughest other than last year. We've had two really hard budgets in a year, and testament to that is that there's not a single budget bid from an elected member in this budget for the first time in my recollection in nearly 20 years on council. And that just shows you that elected members understand this is financially really difficult and are trying to constrain our wish list to zero this time. And I'm not saying that because I'm happy about it, because I think it's an unreasonable constraint, but that's just where we're at. But I think the process around that has been as good as it can be. We've got stuck into recurrent costs in a more serious way this year. It's been welcomed by staff. We've pushed hard. I've never seen such high savings delivered during a budget process. And even with those savings, and we've heard from the deputy tonight, there's other members of the gallery here who aren't happy about some of the draft cuts, and they'll tell us what they think in a formal submission. But they are substantial and they're causing pain. But even with those, we still have a draft 3.5% average rate rise for people, which I don't think anyone on the street would really think was nice. It's a very difficult place for us to be. And we need to do much more to try and work out how we get this council sustainable in the longer term, because right now we're running, I think, a string of 5 deficits in a row. And the hard work we've done will get us back to a balanced budget 1 year earlier than we were shown earlier. But that's still not this year talked about in this draft budget. And it's not the year after that. We're in a tough spot, and there's all sorts of reasons for it, but the asset revaluation is probably the most significant reason. Not something any elected member asked for, but that's how it happens. And within that, the value of the grant funding that governments, both state and federal, have put into the construction market for stimulating construction and housing, commercial buildings and roads in particular, has pushed our costs up. And I think last we got in here, it's in the report, our capital costs are escalating at 5.6% per annum. And that's way beyond what we had in our previous budgets. And hence that's the pain that we're trying to endure and get over in this budget. Pretty hard conversation to have with the average person. But we've had it over months and weeks in particular about how to get to where we're at. I don't think anyone's particularly happy with this budget. And sometimes you kind of think, well, it's probably the right budget then. If everyone's equally unhappy, I don't think that's an objective, but I don't think any of us would say that we're particularly happy with this budget. It's just what it is at the moment. I agree with speakers. I look forward to seeing what the community think, to test our propositions and to really push us hard. And unfortunately, everyone always asks for more things. So Councillor Ripp's suggestion, please tell us what you want less of would be great. In terms of the CEO, I'll probably just a couple of questions for you, and you may wish to direct them somewhere. In terms of the deputy tonight, asking questions about transition arrangements, have there been any considered, and admittedly this is draft and doesn't take effect until hopefully our meeting in June, has that been considered, and is Propel, which is the Eastside Business Enterprise Centre under its new name, have they been considered as part of the arrangements going forward?
I have to be honest with you, through you, Mayor Lachlan, no, on both counts. But it is something we need to consider with some urgency if this draft budget's adopted in the manner it is. There was clear direction, let me rephrase that. There was a clear feedback from members as we were going through the workshop process that there was a strong sense that the rates money for Prospect Road was to go back to the Village Heart Marketing Fund in some way. And that is really all we have to work with at this stage. I'll need to work with Mr. Adams on a plan to bring back to you, and that will certainly be something we'd be bringing back with the budget. But yes, it needs to be done. More work needs to be done on that.
Okay, sure. Thank you. And members of the gallery, hopefully pleased to hear that commitment. In terms of a higher fee, which the deputy said it was one of their options under consideration, how best might they advocate for that, and what's the process of getting it incorporated into the draft budget?
Through you, Mayor Lachlan, I probably need to take on notice unless the director can discuss the process of changing a special rate. Director?
Through the chair, in the past, the economic development team actually helped advocate what is the appropriate amount. Was it $100 or was it $150 through the Main Street group? So there is a special consultation that we have engaged the Main Street group to actually receive feedback as to what is the appropriate amount. So the amount can be determined by council, the amount can be determined through consultation, what is the appropriate amount, and when council adopt the amount, that will be our separate rate.
So I'm assuming, as it was when we set it up, that it's a council decision what that amount is. It's not a vote by the people who get charged the rate. Is that correct?
So it is a council, through the chair, it's a council decision as you adopt the budget, you adopt the rates.
Yeah. Okay. So I imagine that the deputy and others who are interested, if they want to change that fee, can come and ask us to change that fee, and then we make a decision. And obviously, if they're able to demonstrate substantial support, then we'll feel comfort in doing that. If they can't demonstrate substantial support, we probably feel a bit nervous about doing that. But ultimately, that's our decision kind of on their behalf. I also understand that it's one of the lowest fees of all the main street associations in the state, but it might be good for staff to help us understand that. We can get that information. I think it's fairly readily available in terms of what fees are charged in what places. And I know that the amount of money collected is one of the smallest amounts. I think Mount Barker collects about $130,000 a year. So if that helps the people here tonight, just consider some options that might be worth getting them some information like that. But in summary, this is a very, very tough draft budget. And I like to see on page 16 the things that are not included in the budget. And I agree with Councillor Ritt. It'd be good to put them out in the public domain as well and say, you're not getting any of these. So if you want them, you better put up a really cogent argument about how we fund it. So, yeah, I look forward to the feedback that we get. Councillor Barnett, there are no other elected members who can speak, so it's up to you if you wish to sum up.
Yes, and I thank all the speakers, and particularly as the staff has been thanked, CEO, so the staff here. We obviously still have a lot more work to do, but we're here now at a draft annual business plan and budget to go for community consultation. And I think that it's important that, as it says on page 11, that we not only have to consider this annual business plan budget to go into consultation, but we've also have to look at the long-term financial plan and in the context of our strategic plan, which we have to have under the Local Government Act, and longer-term financial sustainability. So the audit committee has been mentioned, and we've taken up their expert consideration about recurrent savings of $550,000 as part of this budget. And so we've done that. One of the toughest budgets I think I've been through in my, 30 odd years, but it has to be done. And we do not, I think, collectively, want to go out and have a much bigger rate in the dollar, that particularly coming out of COVID, particularly as some of our business said, tough times all round. And that's also been part of council's tough times as well. We're still balancing staff that, they have to work away from council online, so it's not going away. Any rate, so as been outlined, we've had to have a reduction in hard waste service from 3 to 2. Now that was all of our decisions have been taken on reports and information and research that has come to us as a collective body. So I'm sure that when we have our consultation sessions, particularly the drop-in sessions, that there will be a whole raft of this information that we have had to make decisions on, which a lot of the community out there, for many reasons, named and being that they're not elected member, I guess. So our difficulty, as some of our councillors said, about how do we explain this? We've got all this information and been able to make the decisions. And also it's really not a matter of just picking and choosing, say, oh, that was my favourite one from a group out there or individual resident or ratepayer, that there are ramifications, that if you want more trees planted, we then have to take something else out. So we cannot, we've reached the point where we cannot say, right, oh yes, we'll be happy to plant more trees, and then that gets added on, because there is a consequence. So I think that's a clear message that we really need to explain to people. So I commend to you the recommendations.
Thank you. That concludes debate. All those in favour? Against is carried unanimously, and off to the public it goes. Look forward to their feedback. Thank you, members of the gallery, for coming tonight. Deputation, as ably demonstrated by the presiding member of CAP. If you wish to leave now, that's perfectly acceptable. If you want to stay for all the other items, we'd love your interest, but please don't feel obliged. But thank you. We look forward to your submissions. Thank you. And all the best out there. It's a tough gig. Okay, item 10.2, the third budget review, 2021-2022. The recommendations are page 100 405. Somebody happy to move it, get it on the floor. Deputy Mayor, do you wish to speak to it?
Not at this point. Thank you.
Seconder. Councillor Ripp, do you wish to speak to it?
Thank you.
Okay, any debate?
Just a couple of questions, please.
Yes.
Yeah, look, another just a good report, just straightforward. It's not terrific. Some of the operating deficit is still very high, even though it's decreased in the third review. Dog registrations is a favourable 28,000. Is that because everyone's paying it correctly, or we got a lot of dogs running around Prospect?
CEO.
Chair, that is just the actual result comes up slightly better than the projection.
Okay. Yep. Okay. Yep. And the magazine, a $25,000 favourable. How was that achieved?
So through you, Mayor Lachlan, that one relates to the fact that the final edition of the magazine for this year will actually be paid for early in next financial year. So we get off with only paying for 2 out of the 3 this year.
Right.
But of course, next year we'll be paying
a timing.
Yes. Timing issue. Okay, we'll take the saving. Okay. Anything further, Councillor Pitts? No. Okay, thank you. Councillor Green.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions I have. The additional infringement income from parking controls, 200K, is that as a result of our recent additions to parking constraints around this building? That's a pretty big number.
CEO.
Deputy Director of Australia.
Happy to hear from the Deputy Mayor instead.
Through the Mayor. Effectively, this goes back to our parking blitz that we commenced mid last year, and basically we've been ongoing in a way since. We've actually made very little income from the local parking controls around this building. I don't have those numbers at hand. I have provided them previously, but very minimal amount of this is actually relevant to that collection aspect. Mainly, it's the broader collection we do across the city, and predominantly, if you want to target it, it's predominantly around bicycle lanes.
Okay.
Yeah. Get into it. Yeah. Councillor Groot, anything? I'll ride a bike.
Get into cyclists or
get into people who offend in.
I thought you were suggesting something else there.
Very, very dangerous when you get a truck coming up on your right hand shoulder and there's a car in the way.
I've apologised for that. So can I just double check that this figure is a quarterly figure though, the 200K?
Or is it?
Yes. So members will recall that we had an interesting discussion around parking revenue at the end of BR2, where I exposed to members that we were having some staffing challenges, and those challenges have been overcome. And so that plus what the directors mentioned is the reason why you're seeing it. And I apologize.
Thank you. Second question was the write-off of rates income due to a property becoming non-rateable. What causes a property to become non-rateable?
CEO, you shed some light on that one.
Through you, Mayor Lachlan, this relates to 250B Churchill Road, which is a property that has been purchased by the state and is, as a consequence, constitutionally exempt from rates.
Okay. Okay, I was going to ask a separate question about that, but you probably answered my question. But probably since I have the floor and I can, I think it's outrageous that we are losing those rates on that property. I'm sure there's no one that's going to disagree with me in this room. I find it just incredible that we lose that and there's nothing we can do about it, but such is life. I think that's the only questions I had. Yes, because I was going to ask about the renewal property. But otherwise, yes, happy with that. But thank you again to the staff for this one as well.
Thank you. Any further debate? So when?
Just a question with the unfavourable adjustments paying the cleaning of $25,000. Should we allocate more resources towards the cleaning of paint fee, given that COVID is still around? Will this be ongoing cleaning?
So through you, Mayor O'Loughlin, we actually had a workshop on this, councillor, a couple of months ago, where we discussed the need to go back to the market in relation to our cleaning contracts with Indy. We offered members some information on what we have been spending and some of the gaps in relation to our existing cleaning contracts. My understanding is that we're currently testing the market for cleaning. Is that right, Director of Infrastructure?
We haven't actually gone out yet. We're in the process of.
So the scope essentially will inform a tender, which will inform a price with a range of severable portions, and essentially we'll get as much as we can for the money we have in the draft budget. The question of whether that's enough is subjective. Many of us would probably like to see more cleaning, in particular things like scheduled outdoor window cleans, more deep cleans in the bathrooms, and potentially more throughout the day cleaning, but that is expensive. In addition, we're exploring options to try and reduce the cost of cleaning by changing the time we clean the building. There's a range of options currently being explored. The market will ultimately determine what is possible versus the budget we have. And at this stage, look, it's impossible to say for sure, but we'll get as much as we can for the money you've given us in the draft budget or in the final budget when it's issued. And if that's not enough, then we'll have to look at that.
Further debate? Just from the chair, I'd like to clarify with regard to the loss of $62,000 worth in rates. The CEO has written in very persuasive terms to the minister responsible for that policy and requested it be reversed. It's a quirk of the renewal SA that they can choose not to pay rates, but they can choose to pay a rate equivalent if they want to. We're encouraging them to have a very good relationship with us. We haven't yet received a reply. Is that right, CEO?
Yeah, so through you, Mayor O'Loughlin, just correct a little bit. You're right, but the rate equivalent that they are paying, which is a competitive neutrality payment, is paid to the treasurer. So that's hard to swallow for the reasons you mentioned, that in essence they're paying someone the money, but essentially the demand that premises draws upon our resources as a council needs to be essentially subsidised by the ratepayer, which is a challenge.
Councillor Harris.
Just in that same question, so mine's a question on the corner of Main North East Road and Delanga and that. There's always a property that, well, for years now been part of the Highways Department, was for the corner. Now there's another two properties they got. So we lose the rates on those other two properties, do we?
I can confidently answer yes. The DIT don't even pay a rate equivalent to anybody. They just don't pay any rates at all.
So we lost two more.
You're correct. Yeah. So that'll be another $3,000 presumably that we won't get.
Yeah. And then the same down by Scotty's corner, we lost that.
We lost the car yards. Yes, the ultimate ownership of those is still in conjecture. The Labor candidate promised to make at least some of it a tree planting area, which probably means it still remains rate exempt. But whether it's a wholesale or not, we haven't yet determined. Yeah. So I don't see have anything to add to that.
Yeah, through you, Mayor O'Loughlin, I need to point out that there is a difference in how both the state and federal government treat income generating land, especially where it's income generating in competition with private business versus other land. The only time that really the local government can ever expect another pay a rate equivalent either to the treasurer or anybody is where they're generating income on the land. If they're not generating income on the land, the Constitution is very clear they don't have to. And in cases where they are generating income, it's only where there's a competitive neutrality policy in place. That dictates who gets the money. And in most cases, that's the treasurer.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Barnett.
Yes, on the this matter, just spoken about Renew SA. Is this a matter that we should be taking up with the local government association with the annual meeting and things like that?
If we could revive it for the annual general meeting. It has been asked for before when the former state government allowed community housing authorities to get a rebate for 75% of the rate value on houses transferred to them by the housing trust. And the intention was and they did transfer thousands of houses. So councils such as Playford and Salisbury and Onkaparinga lost lots of revenue if it was claimed by the community housing authority, and most of them did claim it. So the LGA, yes, mounted an action to lobby against that. It's a while since we've had an advocacy like that. So yes, it could be contemplated by the AGM process. Yeah. Yep. Any further debate? Deputy Mayor.
Oh, sorry, no.
So you wish to sum up?
Well, if everyone's...
I think so, yes. Yep.
Can I ask a question first of all? Nailsworth Hall upgrade, $45,000. That seems to have been I was going to try to come up with something clever to say, but it seems to be a project that hasn't gone well right from the start and it continues to get worse. What's the $45,000 unfavourable adjustment due to?
I'll take it as a question, not you summing up, CEO.
A questioning.
As I understand, it's happened before my time. I'm not using it as a cop-out, and I will refer it to the director in a moment. My understanding is it relates to expenditure that was retimed actually in the last financial year, and that this is a clean-up of that. Is that correct, Director of Infrastructure?
Through the Mayor, predominantly yes. So the actual total value of the works are within what Council signed off at the end of June. This is around when the works fell. We originally planned to do the budget variation and correction in the first budget review. It wasn't done. This has actually picked it up now and putting it in place. So it's actually a delay from when you've actually made the decision on what you're spending to when you're actually bringing it to account. But it's not actually increasing or overspending beyond what you're actually specifying.
It's not a further increase.
Not a further increase.
So it's the end of June 2021.
Deputy Mayor, any further questions?
No more questions.
Summing up if you need.
Thank you. I think that probably raises a good point regarding how the information is provided to us. There's another example in here which I'm trying to work out why it's not included. So the magazine is a favourable adjustment, yet we're planning on spending that money in the next financial year. So therefore, I'm not sure why that wouldn't fit in the retimed category as opposed to the favourable adjustment category. So I think it's great that there's a fair bit of effort put into outlining this, but maybe there's a little bit more thinking that can be done around providing a little bit more evidence carry over to next reporting period. We blew the budget. We found some money in a bag in the park or something like that. Just some of those sort of clarifications just to help, us and people who might be reviewing this get all the insights they need to just inform themselves because this is essentially a bit of a summary of how we're performing against what we thought we were going to do. So the more information, the better from my perspective. And that's all I wanted to say from a summing up perspective.
Thank you. That concludes the debate. All those in favour? Against is carried unanimously. Thank you, elected members. It's nearly 8:25. We've got a lot on our plate, so let's see how we go. 10.3 is the Irish Harp Reserve Community Consultation Outcomes. Recommendations on page 131. So this is to endorse it to go to documentation and delivery. Someone happy to move it and get it on the floor? Councillor Moy.
To move it. First of all, I'd like to thank the staff for putting the report together, especially those involved in the 2 rounds of the community consultation. They've listened to what has been said and incorporated most of the designs, the ideas into the design phase. And we have in front of us a really cool concept plan that looks amazing. The upgrade of the play equipment will bring hours of fun and laughter for our children and also some of our four-legged friends. At the same time, it ticks off the safety concerns that we initially had by the nearby residents and visitors, especially around the lighting and fencing of the both laneways. So hopefully this will reduce the future suspicious activities and the crimes in this reserve. This concept plan would not have looked like this without the additional funding of $325,000 from the Open Space Grant Program from the state government. So again, thank you to the staff administration for submitting the well-written report, the application. Noting the feedback from some of the, that it would be good to have toilets on site, or at least know where the nearest toilets are. I think this will just encourage families to stay longer. It makes sense. I know that it's expensive, but maybe this is something we should consider or think about with our future upgrades. In regards to the Disability Access and Advisory Group, I think maybe on this occasion it's a bit too late to involve them in this process. I know that we will be asking for their input with the peppermint gum. So I think there will be other opportunities to involve them. But just on this occasion, I think it'll be a bit too late. So I hope you will support the motion.
Okay, do I have a seconder? Councillor Pearce, wish to speak to.
Yes, quickly. Again, I want to commend the staff on a really good consultation process. One of the better ones, I think. Particularly the drop-in on the 10th of March had a number of people well timed with the kindergarten next door. So there was a lot of feedback from that. I agree that I did have doubts about the disability and inclusion group not getting a say, but I'd rather see it go ahead rather than 4 or 5 months delay because people start wondering what's going on. So I think we've got it right anyway. Because of the high level of support through the consultation. With the toilets being pretty close up at Prospect Estate, I hope there'll be some signage perhaps that lets people know that they're up there, because it's not a long walk. Down the track we might get some toilets there, but it doesn't fit in with your budgeting at this stage. The other comments quite frequently were the antisocial behaviour, which is there as we know at the moment. And I think with the added use and the additional lighting, that will only help in that matter. So it's going to be a really good reserve. I'm very happy with it.
Thank you. Any further debate? No? Back to you, Councillor Mooney, if you wish to sum up. No, that concludes the debate. All those in favour? Against is carried unanimously. Yeah, looks terrific. Let's hop into it. And the public art team are working on an outcome that's pretty close to approval as well. So hopefully that gets distributed when they've concluded their process. 10.4, Davies Terrace Streetscape, the community consultation outcomes. Just noticing there's a slight change on the screen marked up in yellow. CEO, do you wish to go through that?
Yes, through you, Mayor O'Loughlin. Members, I circulated this to you late this afternoon, and my apologies for this. This was an oversight which I need to take full responsibility for. When this report was originally prepared, I expected that there would be time to get it in for the budget review 3, which of course is before you tonight. That's obviously not possible. As a consequence, it's clear that the only way that this can be funded is from capital borrowings. That is regardless of whether or not we find capital savings in Q4. So let me explain that. If we do find capital savings in Q4, we can fund it from there, but those capital savings would of course been committed already in the form of borrowings to another project. However, if we don't have capital savings, then of course it'll be straight up borrowings in addition to what we've already spent. So either way, it's going to impact capital borrowings, which is why you see what's up there right now. So other than that, no other changes.
Thank you. So I asked the CEO to clarify how the wording in part 2 worked. That's clarifying it, so we know. Is somebody happy to move what's on the screen? The whole thing?
Right. Ready for the whole thing.
Okay. That's a yes?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Harris, do you wish to speak to it?
I got one question that in the start of it, and it's on, my question is regard page 156, and it's about halfway down. Should council not commit to the additional costs, etc.? But I'm going to be speaking to go ahead with it, but the question is in there that if we don't vote to go with this sort of thing, to do it as a normal footpath thing, we're actually going to do some of the driveways either from First Avenue into Davies that are non-compliant. Is that how it reads? Noting that there will be non-compliant grades as per current conditions on the northern side, which is not recommended. So it means if we don't vote for it and we just do the normal footpath stuff, that we'll actually be putting in things that aren't compliant. Is that?
I read it too.
CEO?
Through Mayor Lachlan, yes, that's correct. Anything to add, Director?
And that's through the Mayor, that's exactly right. We don't see how we could remove the footpath outright without the other subsequent works there. So we feel that we have to actually bring the current footpath up to the best condition we possibly could, even though there would be non-compliant aspects to it.
Right. Well, that makes me stronger to speak for it because I don't think we should do that. The most important thing I'd like people to recognise, and I haven't seen this in council, I think, for a long time. I just read you out that paragraph, but if I go down to the consultation, which is the next paragraph, and then I get to the next one where 24 letters hand out, 9 of the letters were for people in Davies Terrace and the other 9 was in First Avenue. So that means 9, so it means 5 households didn't make a comment or something in First Avenue. But the greatest thing was every single household in Davies Terrace made a comment and they were all pretty good. And I don't think we've ever put out any sort of thing that every single person has replied. There's only 9 houses and there's 9 replies. I've gone and actually, bit of a reason I know quite a few people that live in that little bit, that they are happy with this, what we're looking at doing here and trying to do things. And so I'm, to start off, really trying to say, I think we should do this. I think it would be a great sort of asset. All the houses from First Avenue that come onto it are all back fences. You know, the couple of people use the driveways, not all of them. A couple of people use the driveways. So there's a bit of a change in that. But for all the people that do live in Davies Terrace, they'll be looking almost at like a park set up opposite them. And I think living so close to main road is very good. So I'm hoping people vote yes for this, including the other bit that's been added. And I don't think I need to say any more, but I think it's great.
You, I have a seconder. Councillor Rip, just to speak to it.
Basically, echo everything Councillor Harris has said. I've had numerous conversations over the last few years with residents who are really concerned about this stretch, particularly on Davies Terrace. If you haven't been there yourself, I encourage you to. It's deplorable. The condition of the footpaths, it's not acceptable, and I think it's probably, I'd say it's up there as some of the sort of, I'd say it's pretty much some of the worst I've seen in that area. I know on the east at least, and these residents have waited for a long time, and all of them, I'm really excited that all of them have contributed. All of them are in favour of it. I think that's really, really exciting to see. I think it'd be good as a test case to see how this is done and can it be a model that works for other areas in the future. But yeah, the absolute minimum fundamental is to do the footpaths, and to hear they won't be compliant if we go down with what's in our budget. Well, that doesn't help. So I think the only way forward is to give this a go, see if it works, and it could be a test case and a model for future projects.
Any further debate? Councillor Barnett.
Yes, I'd just like to congratulate the staff that actually came to us with this as an innovative idea. I think that's sort of been really great to, test the waters, and we've sort of, grabbed onto it as well. And now the residents nearby, I think, are quite excited about it, because Davies Terrace, I was just trying to think, I think there's less than a handful of other streets where you'd have a similar situation, where it's nearly all backyards. So I just say thanks to the staff that came up with this innovative idea, and let's do it.
Any further debate? Can I just ask a question about part 3? I like the WSUD aspects about it, the recycling water. I like the way that it ties in with an overland stormwater flow and might help lessen demand on our pipes, which are chock-a-block. I like the way that the residents have, are pretty much on board and been waiting for a while to have something. I don't think they miss having a new footpath because none of them want a footpath. So it's kind of a moot point about what they've been missing out on, but they're going to get something far more beautiful. But the $10,000 for maintenance and establishment watering for year one, I'm just curious. I don't believe we've approved an amount like that when we've done a park upgrade. Like on Irish Heart, we just said get on with it, but we weren't asked to approve an additional $10,000 to do that. I guess it's an established park, but this seems like a lot of money for one side of one street. And the second question is, so how is it justified? And secondly, is it in the draft budget we just approved to go out for consultation?
So through you, Mayor Lachlan, the answer to the question 2 is no. This would put it in there and force us to bring it back as a component of the final budget in June. In terms of part 1, Director of Infrastructure.
Through the Mayor, it's something that, from my perspective, we're trying to do with all new initiatives where we actually do demonstrate the actual operational costs associated with the capital works aspect. It's something quite new. It's something that we probably should be doing with all reserve upgrades. So once we get through Pepin Gums and the like, we should be showing you what the budgetary impact is if it's an increase to what's currently in place as a result of the activities or actions put in place. But it's also from our learnings with projects such as Devonport that we should be calling out to you in a bigger way that they do actually have major ongoing impacts in regard to costs. This is actually really only single year's impact, but it's still important that you're actually aware of that up front.
Can I just add to that through you, Mayor Lachlan? I do recall at the workshop this was discussed, and there was a great deal of concern about establishing the plantings in the WSUD fixtures on this road in this area. If you go, as you can often in Adelaide, many months without rain, you could kill all the plants. So the need to water, I think, hopefully is well understood by everybody. We need to get them through that first year to survive. And by their nature, they are water sensitive plantings. So and the $10,000 number seems quite excessive, but it is important, obviously, to preserve the asset, to spend appropriately to make sure that they do survive that first year. Director?
Sorry, just through the Mayor, I should point out the $10,000 would also in that first year, it's when our mulching, we need to do additional mulching as well, bring that up to a standard that will actually last a significant period. It's also additional weeding while the plants are smaller before they establish and start to get to a point where they can actually stop the weeds coming through in larger numbers. So it actually covers more work than just the water.
Just to finish off my thing, if there is an impact like this, and I'm happy to see it so we know about it, but I think we need to look at it over 10 years. If this is 10 grand in 1 year, it's not going to be zero the year following. So when we make a decision, we can say it's an extra 35 grand for this, but if it's 5 grand every year after this, over 10 years, that's, it's 45 plus this 10, 55,000. So maintaining it costs more than the additional capital cost. So what we're doing is really talking about a $90,000 decision. I think that'd be better. We can all work through how much pain we're happy to take or how important we think it is. But I guess I'm not all that happy to see it pop up here in a random way with this. And then it's not in the draft budget we just approved. It's just a bit embarrassing. So perhaps you could take that as feedback, CEO. Yeah. I'm not going to vote against it. And unless one of you suddenly leaves the room, I don't get an opportunity to vote one way or the other. I do support the project. It's just that bit. Yeah. Okay. So any further debate on the item? No, Councillor, sorry?
Just a question, following on from the director's comment that it goes beyond watering, should we actually state in recommendation 3 what it actually covers? Because it just says this really, it's honing in on the established watering. So should it actually?
I think the word maintenance covers what I believe the director's talking about. Sorry.
Right.
No, there's nothing else to maintain in there other than plant vitality. I think it's okay.
That's fine.
Any further debate? If not, Councillor Harris, just to sum up.
Yes, I took on board what the Mayor said and how these things come, but I think as we start planting some of these areas, it's changing our attitude of how we look after them to get established, because I think I've been around many times and we put down a couple of trees or something, particularly in the park, and then they die because of the way we used to look after them. But I see this as very good. And the only thing I want to add, that we can look at. Once it gets really pretty, for want of a better word like that, the drawing we got here and the various sort of things that comes outstanding, and it's Davies Terrace. And if we go to Balfour Street, you go about 4 houses from me and you go to the Thurston family, you'll find Mike Thurston, his father was Davies, that had the lime kilns there. So it's a part of our history, and hopefully Christina's sort of people, as they come in a later date, that in amongst this nice vegetation opposite people's houses, somewhere really nice, we'd have a little plaque there to help us look. So it's not just a ordinary street, not that we have any ordinary streets, but not just a basic street. It's a street also with history that later on, if we show that history, it'll be a nice setting. So hopefully people support it.
Okay, thank you. That concludes debate. All those in favour? Against, it is carried unanimously. 10.5 Peppermint Gums, recommendation on page 155 to go out for the second round of consultation, not for delivery. So somebody happy to move as the recommendation on page 155?
Oh, sorry, page 155's Davies that we're just doing.
Oh, my apologies.
Abbreviate that, do you?
I'm going up what's in my short form.
180.
180. Thanks.
Ah.
Harris, you are on the ball tonight. Now.
Yeah, you stopped me talking before. Tricked me.
I know, it was all your fault. So on page 180, someone happy to move that way? Deputy Mayor, you wish to speak to it?
Again, a good process. It's been around for a long time, and it's good to see it getting some attention. And the Flying Fox being long is good, as opposed to being short. It's not so good. Maybe we could extend that out and sort of go around the park a few more times. Just, yeah. Thanks to the staff for all their work and taking on board the feedback and interested to see what other elected members think.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? So Barnett, wish to speak to it.
I just agree with that, and also I think it's been really great, some of the feedback that we've received. So good consultation process again, and good feedback for people as well.
Any further debate? Tonight I've put the little message out about a site tour by elected members, and I think staff are coordinating that still. There's a big concern. This park has an unusual third dimension to it. Most of our parks are pretty flat. It's got a mound, and I just thought it's probably best that certainly I get together with staff and just talk about a whole heap of things. Big loss of trees proposed as well, to make sure that that I'm comfortable with that. And also, I saw some opportunities on the Dean Street side that, in terms of maybe keeping some things and saving some money, and also parking provision that was discussed, I think, before too. There's some opportunities there. So hopefully that date gets set up and a few of you can make it to that as well. But I look forward to hearing what people think about the current design scheme. Any other speakers to this matter? No? Deputy Mayor, do you wish to sum up?
I don't think there's anything too much more to say. Full stop.
First debate. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. I love those full stops. 10.6 Community Service Awards recommendations on page 206, 207.
Right, I'll just check.
Got me a jazz spook now. 206 jazz is right. 206 to 207.
Pages without.
How are you ever doubted our staff? That's outrageous. So somebody happy to move the recommendation on those pages aforementioned? Councillor Beth Barnett, wish to speak to it.
I just love the idea of the Prospect Run Club.
Yeah.
And so, not that I'll most probably be joining it, but yeah. So
Awesome.
again, all great people there. So yeah, I just love these sorts of recognition things that we do.
You have a seconder? Councillor Pearce?
Yeah, look, I'm happy to second it, and I think it's great. There's just probably one comment I would make though is the nominees for the Australian Citizen of the Year are automatic for this award, and it's not a criticism, I guess, but it's probably well done by the Sea Scouts that they nominated 5 people for the Australian Citizen of the Year, so they will get automatic nominations. Just want to make that comment. And good on them for showing their encouragement for so many nominations. I just perhaps think it might be looked at that automatic selection. It could come back if someone nominates 20 people for the Australian Citizen of the Year, then you get 20 automatic nominations for the community award.
Are you asking a question or making a comment?
Just a comment.
They still have to be worthy.
Any further speakers? If not, then I'll ask a question that follows up from Councillor Robin Pearce, not Captain Pearce. Pearce. Yeah. I'm assuming there is still a filtering process over these candidates. Can somebody just confirm what the process is? CEO?
Yeah, we might have to take that on notice, Mayor Lachlan, simply because we're not equipped from a staffing perspective to answer that right now.
Okay. We will get back to you on that by
The
memo.
answer is clearly yes. I just can't tell you what it is.
Yep.
I would say I don't think so. Because I've been through it a few times, and once they get nominated because a citizen, it's supposed to be a federal government thing, and we follow up all that stuff, they automatically get it. So I don't think it's the process, or we haven't had one.
Okay, so that might, if we confirm that by memo, and that might give rise to a motion notice from someone and ask us to review it. It is due for a review, and I remember the last one. Anyway, I don't want to revisit that sort of review. Right, any further speakers to this item? No, that being the case, Councillor Barnett, do you wish to sum up?
Only that there is a filtering process for the ones that come to us for the Citizen of the Year and all those awards. So they're checked out. And I mean, that seems to be in the majority of things. So I don't know about the others, but we're getting a memo on it. So that would be good information to have.
Stop in there.
Yeah.
That concludes debate. Thank you. All those. Can't work with a semicolon. That concludes debate. All those in favour? Yes, it is carried unanimously, and I agree. Great pause. Fantastic. Next item is 10.7, the Australian Local Government Association 2022 National General Assembly. Recommendations are page 214.
That's correct.
I've declared a conflict of interest and will leave the debate. Just reaching for my key so I can go and get a cup of tea. And CEO will take over briefly to enable you to select a acting chair.
Yes. Yes, you're going to.
As I vacate this chair.
I think people in agreement.
What do you see it?
Thank you, Mayor Lachlan. So, members, first order of business is to appoint a chair. I can do it by show of hands. Is there a nomination from the floor as to who? Councillor Ripp has nominated himself. Anyone prepared to second that? Councillor Wynne is seconding it. Any objection? Any other nominations?
I'd like to hear his reasoning and whether we should. Oh, no, okay.
I'll be the deputy.
I'll second.
I'm not going to allow any debate. Any other nominations?
I want to get home tonight.
I take it the answer is no. All in favour, Councillor Ripp chairing. That is carried. Councillor Ripp will chair the item 10.7, Australian Local Government Association National General Assembly.
Act of the deputy to the deputy, why not?
All right.
Point of order. No, I'm joking.
I was going to wait till you sat down.
All right, so item 10.7 is before us. Obviously, we've had material conflicts, obviously due to the monetary component of the conference for item 10.7. So seeking a mover for all three items that we insert in item 2, endorse Mayor David O'Loughlin, Deputy Matt Larwood and Councillor Robin Pearce to be registered and attend, seeking a mover for all three. Move Councillor Groot. I saw you get in first. Any debate or anything?
Look, just to say, I have been to these in the past. They are a great opportunity to network and do other good things in Canberra and hear what's going on. I'm aware that this is the last year of our council, so I presume there is either opportunity of other elected members change their mind between now and June. Could be. I don't know, but yeah, if you haven't had a chance and you have a chance to go to them, I'd certainly recommend it, but certainly support the three nominees.
Just before I move, it does say on page 215, I'll just check with the CEO, that there is a total budget remaining in this portfolio of 2696. So if someone did wish to nominate, would it, I'll ask that question for you, if there would be the opportunity for a late enrolment if someone did want to go?
Yes, so through your council, just below that, you'll see that if the three endorsed or the three proposed members are approved attendance, that after paying for their fees, which are outlined at the bottom of page 214, noting, of course, that there may be some additional costs associated with that because there are some additional optional components. It's likely to be immaterial, but the remaining budget is still anticipated to be at well over $12,000, which gives us significant scope to send additional members should anyone be interested.
Opportunities there. And I did see this. We'll call for a seconder. Yeah, Councillor Harris, if you wish.
I watch Bargain Hunt, so I just nod my head. You know? Yeah. I don't need to speak. I think it's exactly what the previous speaker said. It's a great opportunity. I haven't been for a long time, but it's to meet other people, listen to other things, and to come back all the more wiser.
So you're not speaking to it?
I second it.
Yeah, second.
Board again.
Because I'm seconding, I'll just confirm was for all three items. Excellent. All right, any debate? Councillor.
Yes, I'll vote in favour. I just want to question. I remember when I've done this, I've actually had to fill out some form or something. So I'm just wondering, has that happened with this one? Is it council's some policy?
Yes, through you, Councillor, yes. Forms have been filled out, will be filled out for those who may wish to attend and will be submitted upon the endorsement of the council.
Well, therefore, I'm satisfied and will vote in favour.
So any further debate? There be none, I'll call to the mover if you wish to sum up.
Look, just to reiterate my point, if you want to go, they're really good opportunities. Councillor Nguyen, you might want to go and recommend you bring your hand up for it.
Children.
Sorry about the children, that'll be fine.
Do they have nice food?
Okay, that something has been concluded, so I'll vote for the vote. All in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ridd. Can we
Please, peanuts or biscuit.
Very good. Members, you might want to take this opportunity to take a quick bathroom break if you can.
Call it for a 5 minute. Do you want me to come back and share and call for a 5 minute break?
If you want.
I'll do that.
I think we're short of a quorum now, but
What we'll do is just in the we'll have a 5 minute break. People need to stand up, stretch over the way, so we'll call for a 5 minute break at 8:55.
Presume we don't stand up and go to the loo on the same spot.
Well, I certainly hope not. Could be interesting.
Leave your spot.
Good job, Steve.
if they don't agree, they can take it up in a minute. Well done, Councillor Ridd.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.
What did you call the meeting?
Huh?
It's called?
We close the meeting. Can you imagine?
Have you finished, Chair?
Yeah, all good, mate. Done. All three are good to go.
Yeah, see if we tend to that. Lots of kids coming in.
Am I going to have another biscuit or not?
Oh, would you get a 5 minute break?
No, but you know,
Why just eat it?
like a pig basically.
Oh, don't worry about that. That's Easter. That's what Easter is for, mate. Don't worry about it.
I have. I've got the tight girdle on tonight. Yeah.
Oh, mine again. I'm very excited.
You're busy? Is that me? Yeah. Very good.
I look forward to it.
I didn't see you.
Yeah.
I'd like to say we could fix all these little But
Great to see the
I just hold over the shops.
So we've got bigger issues. We're overrun with aphids, so we can't.
I know.
What hell no, with us all.
Sorry, I can't deal with them, but I'm going to kill everything else in existence.
I saw the thing on Facebook. I said to them Monday, I seen you guys interested. Oh, really? My first muscle was yeah.
Jason's fish. We trialled chairs. Yeah, we chose them out of a long line of chairs.
Oh,
About 12.5
Like chairs, but we're actually really
No. What age are they now?
So by consensus, these are the ones that most people like most of the time. Colour choice. That was the next argument. I'm glad we ended up with boring charcoal.
some reds and yellows.
Well, that ended up in other places.
now.
See, that's I think I worked out where the table was. Your eyes.
Yeah, so it doesn't down there, but just one little bit that way. Bang. Now, in the olden days,
It's like
the last
right
week,
here.
yeah, it's on there. The rubbish trucks that come around never used to come into the side streets at 7 a.m. And once mine.
Does it count the council trucks?
No, then when COVID come out, they did start doing something earlier.
Is it meant to be there?
Like, this is it. And it's 6:10.
Okay, folks.
Down in Main Street.
5 minute adjournment, not a 5 hour one.
What changed it?
You were. You've done well. A lot of changes, Jazz. Ease up on yourself. That's true.
Oh, come on, where have you gone?
Photo, unfortunately.
Cyberspace here.
Yeah, you do that. I can. Come on. It's going to be a late night anyway.
Yeah.
We'll be voting against an extension, I can see that. Now, that item was carried, I presume, was it?
Yes, it was.
That's good. That's really it's all made China.
Okay, good. You're going halfway through.
Thank you.
Back from a break. All right.
Halfway down.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I try my hardest. Plenty of practice. Good training.
Are there more?
Okay.
Come on, I'm ready.
2, 3, 4, 5. We've got quorum. I'm up to item 11, general business of an urgent nature. Are there any items that people consider urgent that want to test the floor on urgency and all the rest of it? If not, no. Good. Moving on item 12, reports for information. Normally adopt these on block unless they are withdrawn by someone for discussion. Unfortunately, there is a change to the mirror report, 12.1, so I'll withdraw that to make that change. At 12.2, does anybody wish to withdraw item 12.2, Disability Action and Inclusion Plan quarterly update report?
Can I? Yes.
Okay.
But I'll move it, so.
It's okay. Does anyone wish to withdraw item 12.3, response to urgent motion, murals, agreements and options? Going well so far here. Item 12.4, we've already done. Item 12.5, does anybody wish to withdraw the audit committee minutes?
So the murals, nothing?
No. Okay. And to item 12.6, waste management for multi-unit dwellings, final contribution options. Does anybody wish to withdraw that item, noting we had further clarification from the director earlier today? No one wishes to withdraw it. Does anybody wish to move on block item 12.5 and 12.6? Councillor Ripp, there's no speaking to items that are moved on block. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Barnett. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Now, Mirror report. Apologies, folks. The Mirror report includes an item that, so I attended the KeySAP Waste Strategy Direction meeting. It was online. There's some problem. I couldn't log on. Tried very hard. Didn't happen. So it's got to come out of the report and it's reflected in the revised recommendation on the screen. Somebody's happy to move that way, unless someone's got a question, but it will get on the floor first. Someone move as per what's on the screen. Councillor Ripp, do you wish to speak to it?
No, thank you.
Got a seconder? Councillor Harris, do you wish to speak to it?
Thank you.
Further debate? That concludes the debate. All those in favour? Against is carried unanimously. Next item 12.2, the Disability Action Inclusion Plan. Councillor Harris, happy to move it.
Yeah, I'm going to move it without much ado, but I just wanted to point out again how important this sort of thing is and go, because a lot of you, I think, including myself, a lot of you were over at the RSL thing, the RSL yesterday morning and that, and we ended up in a wheelchair, and then Fran, I think some of the previous people, Fran Mother was there in the same, and I saw another 2 wheelchairs, and because of the size of the gathering, that you were just shut out, you couldn't get near the thing, and Fran and Jane had to sit back into the football part. You didn't, with that magnificent sound system, you didn't hear anything. So it's just one of those things that I think this area comes up important, that even though that's not us, the RSL, but it's things that are in our city that this process hopefully helps those sort of things that happen in our city. Apart from that, it's a very interesting thing and it's good what's happening, and more than happy to endorse it.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder?
Sorry.
Councillor Ripp, just speak to it.
Just briefly to thank staff for obviously progressing this. Obviously, we're disappointed at how delayed it was, but obviously happy to see it progressing now, and I'm pleased obviously that we've had our inaugural meeting on the 24th of March. Had feedback from one person as part of this that would like to see, they are aware that the inaugural meeting is a lot of information coming from council staff about the way forward and what the group will be doing, but they hope in future meetings that a lot of their feedback will be sought, because they felt like it was a lot of information one way. Obviously, they're mindful that they'll probably be further involved as it progresses, but they definitely want to give as much as possible to it. So they want more, I guess, of the two-way style meeting.
Yeah. Any further debate? Congratulations, staff. Much better than the previous one. That concludes the debate. Councillor Harris, wish to sum up?
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity.
Concludes debate. All those in favour? Against is carried unanimously. Terrific. Item 12. Sorry, lose my way again. The murals. Item 12.3. Councillor Groot, response to urgent motion murals across the city, agreements and options.
Yes, look, happy to move it. Thank you. I just want to say a couple of very, very brief things. I really appreciate that we've got the Newmarch Gallery Public Art Collection website. I thought that's a really useful resource that I wasn't aware of, and maybe other elected members weren't aware of either. So that's really helpful. Question though, the photos on there are all photos of our murals, which is good. But have we undertaken a process at all to get professional photos taken? So professional being some of them have got street signs in the way, or they're taken at an angle so that they store the actual image. So that if we ever wanted to rely on that for some purpose later on, we were able to do that. So it's a question about whether we've ever had that sort of professional photography of those taken, or has it been someone with a camera on the back of an iPhone taking a picture of those?
Thank you, CEO. Director Community Planning.
Through the chair, my understanding is that has occurred in relation to murals with high resolution professional photography.
Okay.
I did it myself with the iPhone, but you worried.
Excellent. Mayor has it under control. That's good. Okay, thank you. I'm really pleased to hear that. There is one missing from the website, and it's been alerted to me by a resident, which is the mural near the air raid shelter. So that didn't actually appear in the collection. So just be perhaps added to that.
They would have come later.
It's not not surprising, but disappointed that we have very little protections over murals. I think the point made in the report that murals come and go, and I think to a degree that's true, but there are some which are very special to the City of Prospect and to residents within the City of Prospect. So it will no doubt cause us to pause and think about, can we put some protections in place within the confines of what we can do, which is very little. And so that's a bit of a good problem for us. And I know there are a few very special ones that we would want to make sure are protected in some way. I'm not proposing we're going to put a resolution to that tonight, of course, but we will need to think that through, or maybe the new council will think that through in the coming months. It would be remiss of me not to thank the staff for putting this together. I know it was done in a very short period of time, so thank you for doing that, and I commend the motion and appreciate the information that's in it.
Thank you. Councillor Harris, happy to second it.
Yes, I'm happy to second it. And I'll just ask one question before I say my last little bit I'm allowed to say. On page 230, second paragraph from the bottom, and this is talking about the history of Australia one, and in talking about that we had an agreement with the owner, I think, and so my question is, has that owner changed in that time? I think it's a new owner from then, from the agreement.
Question, CEO?
So it doesn't really change what we're doing here, but I'd like to at some stage look, have we got a new owner or a future owner after that maybe we can have an agreement with? So
first question is the current owner the original owner and agreeer?
Yeah, I suppose that's the best way.
Changed hands, but CEO,
Acting Director, you have to answer that.
I wouldn't need to take that on.
No. So if you just take that on, and then if maybe we can look at.
Second question is, could we do a new agreement with the new owner? That was the second question. The answer is almost categorically no, that the current owner threatened to demolish the entire building unless we paid
him, was it? I thought that was still the first one.
No, it's the current owner. So that we've had a discussion with them. Our staff have had a good discussion around development potential. They came to us at a very stressed time with no tenants in the building. They've since had a very good tenant history there, so the pressure's off them to redevelop the site. That's what's been, but they will not sign an agreement. That's
all right. Thanks. That's good enough for my answer for that. Look, I'll just then second it to say thank you very much, and very good effort by the various staff people of what they've done. And just looking particularly in the Australia history one is on her own for many, many years. Annie Newmarch kept sort of working and touching up particularly, and it was very seldom bad graffiti on it, but there was occasional tags and that, and she done all those things. So hopefully she's not here now, or not with us anyway, and so that one could drift off a little bit. But I want to take what the mover said, that's important to get these good photographs, because where Northern Plumbing was, and which is it now, Clay, on Main North Road, we had one of all the previous women that have been associated with council and that, and two councillors from here and then others. And when the plumbing people took over, they would demolish it or sealed it up because it was two buildings together. But a lot of professional photos were taken for our keepsake. I don't know where they are, but hopefully someone from council's got them. And murals, like the previous speaker said, that yes, some people put up things and they're only there for a short period of time because they only have that sort of impact for a reason, for a short period of time. But some that talk about history particularly and other things, if they can be looked after, are very important to the city. And I think if you look at a sizable amount, not a whole lot, but a sizable amount of people that move to the city of Prospect, murals are part of them coming. That culture that we created, not me, I apologise that, I only used to do Blinky Bill, but the culture that was here, the Christinas and other people around that were here, is a total important part of our history here. So a lot of these things, if we can keep them, they're very important. And I'll finish by saying, as I always say, if you look at the Australia history one down here on Prospect Road, And if you look on the right-hand side, or go down here, I suppose, in the building, and look on the right-hand side, and you see the people having the barbecue and the picnic and repairing things on the lawns and stuff like that, those faces are people of Prospect, and each one of them is someone's face, most probably a lot of them dead now, but in Prospect. So it's a double sort of history of our sort of thing. So thank you very much to the staff for doing it. Very sort of disappointed we can't do another sort of step, but maybe in time something can happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Barnett.
Again, thanks for the report. It's pretty obvious, much to our disappointment, but it is what it is. But again, pointing out the importance of having photographic history, and into our local history collection. Also, I've noticed, apropos of that we've had quite a few beautiful mosaic Stobie pole art being done. So I'm hoping that we're having a photographic collection of that. I'm assuming the ceramics, it'll last a bit longer than some of the paint ones. Some of the painted original paint ones have all started to fade away. So I haven't checked in our local history collection yet whether we've got records of all of those. Thanks.
Thank you. Further debate? Briefly, I'm probably have a slightly different position on this. I love the murals. I agree they're an important part of our history, but I'm always interested in the artist's view about permanency. And the artists have, usually, not always, a view that says, look, it's a temporary piece. It's there to bring joy, and I know it won't last forever, and I'm not at all troubled by that. And it seems that the community attaches more importance to its longevity than the artist does, which I find just interesting. I think, and you've read in the report, wherever it's been tested that the council says you'll only get a mural if you sign an agreement, the owner invariably says, no, thanks. I will not sign a land management agreement of any kind on my title that restricts it. So the outcome is you get no murals. And so the balance you find is, well, how do you get something that's beautiful and hope that it stays as long as it can? And when it's gone, it's gone. A bit like a rose blooming in the garden. You admire it for what it is, but you know that it's temporary. And that's my approach to this stuff now, because I was always, like some speakers here, once it's on, it's there forever. Of course, it's paint. It's not going to be forever just by virtue of the fact that it's paint and it's on an outside wall. So what I really look to see is what other interest it generates and what people do spontaneously. And a really good example is what's happened on Churchill Road. We read in the report, there's a whole new mural on the side of a building that the building owner has decided to paint because they see that murals fit well into our community. And I think that's actually a much better outcome that they're doing under their own auspices. Again, temporary, because they could have another building next to them, who knows when. They've paid their own money for it, and they'll curate it over time. And I'd love to see more of that style happening. Notwithstanding, if someone can come up with a way to secure it, I'd be all for it. But I just don't have that expectation anymore. And I know that if we wanted to, the landowners would sensibly say, well, you sign a lease and pay me money and I'll keep it there as long as you're paying the lease that I agree with. And then you think, oh, well, we've lost some magic here. And the Stobie poles is another one. There's some mosaics that have gone up recently in Audley Avenue and nearby. And I caught the artist, not caught. I was just happening to going past on my treadly. And I said, this is fantastic. She said, oh, the rigmarole in getting SAPN to agree to have art on a pole. Of course, our staff correctly advised you've got to get permission. We don't own the poles. And she said they were adamant they wanted it on a bit of cement sheet so that if the pole ever had to be replaced, the art could be taken off and saved, and they wouldn't get in trouble for taking the pole out. And she said, I point blank refused to put it on a sheet. I don't want this to last forever. This is temporary, and I want people to understand it's temporary. So I said, I'm sticking it straight to the pole, and that's that. Yeah, how's that? So I kind of went, what? And the work is stupendously good. This is a really interesting space when you actually talk to artists about it. So that's really informed my thinking, and so I have different expectations now. So But it is a great report. There is a record that is around, and these murals will go eventually for one reason or another. The three that you've seen in there in the report from Art Lab, I think 2 of the 3 have been restored, and that's a tricky process as well. So there is a process underway with the 25 grand a year we allocate to public art. That money, some of that is spent on keeping the stuff we've got in good condition. Great report. Thank you, staff, for that. Councillor Rip.
Yeah, can I just ask a question that, and staff and particularly Councillor Harris might know as well. What about the mural that was on the Collinswood Tennis Club? As I know that was an art mural there that was, as we've talked about in previous times, painted over or whatever happened to it. What does that one included in this type of situation? That's one that's actually was lost.
Painted over by the current lessees.
Yeah.
CEO, do we know if that's a council initiated and managed one? I don't think. I think it was a club managed one.
It was the
Club one.
It was the Colin Grove Tennis Club. The juniors in there painted all themselves, whatever year it was, and the teachers and various things. Well, I know the kids, so I'd have to look. See. So it was we supplied an artist that went with it, and the paint. I think we supplied the paint.
So in other words, completely at the discretion of the club. It's their wall. But again, that's one of those spontaneous things I spoke about.
Well, I disagree with that.
Councillor Rick? No. Any further debate? Sorry, Councillor Groot, do you wish to sum up?
I just want to comment on one thing you said, actually, Mayor, and I think it's a point well made, which is the transient nature of murals. And I wonder, as we think forward to murals and we're commissioning artists or landowners are commissioning artists to put them in, how it would be really good to say, we expect this mural to stay for the next 10 years or have some sort of time frame on it so that it sets a community expectation that it won't be there forever. Because I think what we have created, rightly or wrongly, is an expectation that they will be forever. And the emotion, particularly around the history of Australia, shows that people are committed to that, to be around forever. So we had murals saying, this has got a 5-year time frame. Then we want someone else to come and paint something totally different over it, not a black wall necessarily, but another mural. That might be a really good way of trying to explore that narrative in the community and perhaps reset expectations about what it means to have murals in the city of Prospect. Leave it at that.
Suggestion. That concludes debate. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Yeah, it could be by way of a plaque affixed to the wall. Yeah. Okay. That concludes section 12. On to council members' reports and briefings. Are there any? Councillor Barnett.
Yes, I was very happy to be practically the last elected member left standing to host the mayor's afternoon tea at the football.
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah.
So had 2 progress clubs. Thank you. And all went very well in the next lot of temporary place for it, for the bean. Yes, while the renovations are going on there.
Thank you, Councillor Barnett, much appreciated. And just briefly on top of that, while I've got the talking stick, I'm really pleased to see every elected member represented at Anzac Day dawn service yesterday. And I took particular delight in pointing that out to a former councillor who had decided to turn up after being absent for several years. And I don't have a solid memory of being there every year as an elected member, who said, no other elected members here today. And I said, actually, there's that one, and that one. And I hadn't seen Councillor Harris because obviously what he just explained. And that means if all of you were there, and I really appreciated it. It makes a big difference for me to be able to say those things and for you to meet people. And yeah, it's really, it's fantastic. And thank you again for.
My pleasure. And there were some former elected members at the Anzac Day service as well.
Yes, there were. Yes. Yeah. Yep. Okay, any other council member reports?
Just they obviously attended, as we know, our Anzac Day dawn service and the gunfire breakfast. Just want to thank the Prospect RSL as well. I thought they put on a really good service. It was really moving, and I particularly liked the personal story that the chaplain gave in his address, talking, and it was actually about his uncle or family member that served as well. I thought that was really touching. And yeah, good moving service, good breakfast after, and it was actually nice to get back. Obviously, have the face-to-face service and breakfast after was nice, and a lot of people really valued it, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. Councillor Barnett.
Oh, sorry, I forgot, even though I'm on the Prospect RSL committee as a member of the, as a resident, not, as a council representative. But just pointing out, and you can see the information on the Prospect RSL Facebook site. So we had the inaugural Anzac Day match, 2 medals that were presented. All right. So that's the RSL committee is engaged with the North Adelaide Football Club, and so that so we had that. Yeah. And also for the first time, I think we had at least about 18 or 20 so of the North Adelaide Football Club, younger, well, they're all men, attend the dawn service as well for the first time. So.
The councillor got a great photo of it. Yeah, terrific. Thank you. There's no more. Move on to item 14, motions on notice. And we have one from Councillor Larwood here. This is my thing. Deputy Mayor, Lord Mayor Larwood.
I didn't recognise this as my work until you.
Too short.
Are we standing or sitting?
I'm sitting. I'm not sure what you're doing. It looks like sitting.
Oh, tradition. I'm one for tradition. Speaking of tradition, I'm going to read the whole thing out. I'd first of all like to thank the CEO for help with the words. Part 1, Council raise in a future meeting of the Eastern Regional Alliance of Councils the question of illegal dumping around multi-unit dwellings in the inner metropolitan areas of Adelaide. Part 2, if issues are identified that are consistent across area councils, you will be invited to raise this as an issue with East West with a view to East West conducting an education campaign across the era region to address this issue, and Part 3, that progress be reported back to the council. Just to speak briefly, just noting the CEO's comments, there's no anticipated budget implications arising from this notion of modus. So walking the streets of Prospect, as we all do, we do see illegal dumping from time to time, but it's my experience that there's, I was going to try to get the word proclivity into the sentence, but I don't think it's the right use of the word.
Just did.
Thanks. There seems to be more consistent amount of illegal dumping around multi-unit dwellings. And I think it comes down purely and simply to an educational piece because of the nature of multi-unit dwellings with people coming and going more frequently. There's more than likely no one really responsible for informing new tenants that there are processes for getting hard rubbish picked up, and it's not okay just to put something that you finish without in the front because it magically disappears because someone like myself takes a photograph of it and reports it, and then it gets picked up by the staff, thanking the staff for doing that. So before we jump in and initiate any sort of action, I thought it was useful to test the waters on whether this is a consistent problem. If it's not, then that's probably the end of it, and we just have to put up with it. But if it is, it'll be good to see ERA speaking with East West to try to address it, because it is particularly annoying. It happens consistently in areas where there's multi-unit dwellings, and it just denigrates the whole feel of the street. So that's really what the motion's about. Hopefully it's fairly straightforward, and given that there's no budgetary implications, I'm hoping that the elected member group will support the motion.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? So Barnett, wish to speak to it?
No, I think it's a good idea to see what's happening across our area councils and see if there's a possibility of doing something, because if there is, well, it helps us as well.
Thank you. Any further speakers?
Yeah, And it'd be. I'm happy to support the motion. It'd be interesting to see if there is consistent issues around, I guess, experience with the other councils. So I think it's appropriate to raise it through the Eastern Region Alliance of Councils. The interesting thing will go to how you actually prove who's done the dumping, where it is, because I've also heard of cases where other residents get their stuff and just dump it in front of units because it's an easier and more convenient. So I've heard of that happening elsewhere. So the issue around proof of how you prove who's dumped what where, I think is very difficult, and it's never really been addressed by any council, I don't think, successfully across the board. The other thing is, if there is an issue identified, it'd be also interesting. I'd be interested to see if it is an issue with all councils. What practice do they have in place about picking up waste around multi-unit dwellings? Because if we're experiencing an issue, I could easily flag that there's probably a direct correlation to the fact that we don't pick up the waste around a number of multi-unit dwellings. So could that lead to an impact in legal dumping? Probably, if we're not picking up their waste. So I think it raises further issues. So I think it'd be first good to see how this comes back, and if it is a consistent issue, then we need to look at working with the councils across the board. Well, what are we going to do about it? Because if they don't pick up waste, and then it's a consistent problem, there's probably a direct correlation. So it'll be interesting to see what comes back.
Okay, thank you. Any further debate? If not, Deputy Mayor Larwood, wish to sum up?
Look, I think there's always going to be barriers to getting a perfect outcome, but I think it's worthwhile investigating. The type of dumping that I'm talking about isn't necessarily bags of rubbish. It's hard waste. It's cupboards. It's racks. It's shelving. It's chairs. It's tables. It's beds. It's all sorts of things like that. Yeah. And there's no doubt there's a series of stakeholders involved in trying to come up with a solution. And I'm looking forward to seeing what the CEO is able to uncover in his conversations with his counterparts across the era.
Thank you. That concludes debate. All those in favour? Against, is carried unanimously. It's fair weight on your shoulders, CEO. Hope you're comfortable with that.
You, Mayor.
No, thanks. That was quick.
The next Mayor's.
I hadn't even got to the full stop in my statement. We got it back. Anyway, questions with notice there are nil. Confidential items there are 3. North Adelaide Football Club securities reports separately distributed. Recommendations on page 5. First is the order to exclude the public as recommended to us. Somebody happy to move that way. Councillor Barnett, do you wish to speak to it? And seconded by Councillor Ripp, do you wish to speak to it? Any further debate? If not, that concludes the debate. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Okay. We'll check the confidentiality order and close the